maybe the best way to cover the different elements of a territorial approach to local development is to visualize, to make a diagram that visualize those elements. If we are aiming at promoting territorial development, which we have described as local development, which is endogenous, integrated, multiscalar, and incremental. Okay? If we want to promote territorial development as local development which has these four characteristics, the first thing to focus on is to improve the local development management system. And what we mean by local development management system. Essentially, the enabling of local government with a comprehensive mandate, for local authorities. So we need a comprehensive mandate for local authorities. I'll come back to it in a minute. Let me show the four basic elements. We need an improved local planning system. We need a set of diversified financing, local development financing instruments. And we need improved institution and capacity for local, so institution and capacity for local development implementation. Okay, let's review each of them in sequence. A comprehensive mandate for local authorities, very important basic point. Local authorities cannot be conceived as managerial entities in charge of the delivery of a specific set of services. They cannot be conceived only like that, but they must be recognized as political actors with a general mandate for the welfare of their communities. So they must be able to develop, not only implement better locally the specific function that have been assigned and delegated to them, but they must be able to come up with their own policies, their own programs, and in that process mobilize additional resources from communities and private sector. Improved local planning system. There must be a clear understanding that once you have local authorities which are autonomous, local authorities representing politically a local political constituency, And once you have created this multi-level governance and administration system through decentralization reforms, planning, public sector planning can no longer be structured as a hierarchical series of plans that at each level go into the higher level until they end up in a single national plan which is approved by the National Assembly and financed by the Ministry of Finance. There must be a recognition that you now have different systems, different authorities, and that the issue is not to consolidate but to coordinate different planning exercise. So in a formula, to be perhaps more clear, there must be a recognition that local planning is not the localization of the national plan. So local planning is not just that portion of the national plan that is implemented in that particular locality. That of course create a series of issues in terms of how you coordinate local planning with local territorial planning with sectoral planning by the state agencies, and how you coordinate that with plans of the private sector or of community organizations. So it raises the issue of coordinating mechanisms for planning. But the very basic point to realize is that local planning is not localization of the national plan. Financing instruments, local development will not happen if it's not properly financed, and a range of financing instruments must be in place to finance local development. These are usually, we can think of 5 types of financing instruments. First of all, the own source revenue of the local authorities themselves, what the local authorities can raise through taxes and fees. Then, very important, of course, particularly in developing countries, transfers of financial resources from the center to the local authorities, and these transfers could be general purpose or could be purpose specific. There could be there are several mechanisms for managing those transfers. Those transfers will support local budget, the revenue side of the local budgets. Then we can think of not budget supporting but project supporting mechanisms. In other terms, windows of financing of local investments by the local authorities. This could take different forms. In some countries, for example, this is a role. In some developing countries, this is a role that recently the social funds are playing. In other more developed countries, you have dedicated financial institutions, banks for local authorities that perform their role of providing financing to specific projects of the local authorities, which are assessed and appraised on the basis of their merits by the source of funding. Then you have the possibility of accessing domestic and international capital market, issuing bonds, accessing credit from commercial banks. This, of course, it's something usually available to more developed local authorities in more developed countries, but attempts are being made in developing countries too, particularly through pool funding arrangements in which the risks are pooled. The risk of lending or the risk associated with bonds issued by local authorities are pooled in order to reduce them. Still, however, something for the future for many developing countries, particularly the LDCs. And finally, another mechanism which is, I believe, extremely important, that could be developed more than it is today, contractual financing through delegation arrangements by, for example, central authorities that use local authorities as their contractors, as the implementers of their policies and programs, and in the process, to benefit from the ability of local authorities to adjust those programs and projects to the local realities. So a diversified set of financing instrument is critical and should be promoted. And finally, the institutional capacity for implementation must be developed to facilitate implementation by local authorities. Here, what we're talking about is trying to avoid, rigid approaches that reproduce the rules and regulations that central authorities have to abide when they procure projects and programs, because these rigidities, on one side work against local resource mobilization, which are easier if you, for example, allow innovative forms of procurement through communities, community contracting, and so on and so forth. So on one end, they make more difficult to mobilize resources. On the other end, they create incentive to skip the rules, so that, for example, excessively low ceilings for competitive bidding procedures may create incentive for local authority to break a particular project into more modest portions that they could better negotiate with local contractors or assign to community to implement, with overall losses in efficiency in terms of the implementation of the investment. So essentially, giving to local authorities a more comprehensive role, improving the local planning systems, make it more sound, more participatory, and connected to the national and regional planning processes, providing a diversified set of financing instruments, and finally, providing a legal and regulatory framework for procurement that helps, that is more adapted to local conditions and helps in mobilizing resources and at the same time safeguard the efficiency of the process. action on each or any of this, depending on the condition of the countries, would eventually improve the local development management system and lead to better territorial development outcomes.